So, your report touches on the changing trajectory of China's Belt and Road Initiative, from being a major lender to developing countries to now holding back as it waits to collect on its debts. Why do so many countries owe money to China now? And where is China still lending out funding to, if any?
China's Belt and Road Initiative was in full swing in around 2016, 2017. And for most of those, or a majority of those loans, China's actual loan terms offer 5 to 8 year grace periods. And so 5 to 8 years on the mid 2010s meant that this period now, around the sort of mid 2020s, was always going to be a crunch period. And then there was one other factor that has sort of increased the wave of repayments that we're seeing now, and that's China's participation in the Debt Service Suspension Initiative, the G20 initiative during the pandemic. So this was an international deal that saw countries pause repayments. That is why we're at record levels in 2025. On the topic of where China's lending has been most resilient, our analysis shows two key groups. One of them we sort of think about as being sort of strategic, and the other one's more about resources. China has continued to lend. The majority of its remaining lending has gone to countries that are critical minerals producers and battery metals exporters. But on the strategic front, China still lends to all of its neighboring countries quite heavily. And then the other factor, and the one that's most relevant for Taiwan, is that China has lent a lot to countries when it's tried to secure the One China policies. Honduras in 2023, Nicaragua in 2021, the Solomon Islands, Burkina Faso, the Dominican Republic. All these countries saw big, largest of their kind loan deals from China in the aftermath of swapping from Taiwan and adopting the One China policy.
So, China has now responded to your report, saying that they do follow international conventions and market rules. Now, do you think the international community will put on more pressure to China to try to change the way that its infrastructure funding works? And what do you think China's strategy will be going forward?
I think public outreach from China on the topic is likely to increase in the next few years because, for all developing countries, 2024 was a record year for payments, and then for the most vulnerable and low-income countries, 2025 was a record year. So for each country that China is engaged with as a partner that it has also lent to, being a debt collector is not diplomatic by nature, and so it will have to play this balancing act between recouping the money that it's lent out and then also managing its relationship with that country. Whether that causes a sort of a big change in how China approaches these things is very difficult to say, but there has been some positive signs that China has been more likely to engage in debt restructuring deals. We've seen a few cases in Africa where China has come to the table, but there are still big barriers to China offering debt haircuts, write down of its debts.